Right, in this next lesson, we're going to look at reviewing how we can work with percents a little bit. I'm going to go through a 5-step process that'll work every time, but if you have another method that you understand how to solve percent problems that you want to use, by all means go ahead and use it. Okay? I've got these 5 steps, and as we go through these 5 steps, I'm also going to work through this first problem just to show you how each step looks on its own. Okay? So when we solve a percent problem, what we want to do is set up a ratio. Okay? And a ratio is just saying that one number is equal to another number. Okay? And you'll see that as we progress through this example. The first thing we want to do is take our percentage and write it over 100. Because if you remember, percent means out of 100. So here in this question I have 86%. So that means I'm going to take my percent 86 and write it over 100. Okay? Second step is to write the of number on the bottom. Now what I mean by the of number, that's whatever comes directly after the word of. So here we see of, and then right after that comes the number 131. So that number 131 is going to go on the bottom. So we're going to set up the other half of our ratio with 131 on the bottom. Okay. Step number 3, whatever is left goes on the top. Okay. In this case, we've used the two numbers already. Okay, so what's left? Well, there's nothing left, but there's something that we want to figure out. And whenever there's something that we need to figure out, we always use some variable. Okay, typically we use x. That just means it's some unknown number. And in this case, that's what we're trying to find out. That is what is 86% of 131. Okay. Once you get through these first 3 steps, that's getting the problem set up. The steps 4 and 5 deal with how do we solve the problem. Okay. So step number 4, we're going to cross multiply. Okay. And all that means is we're going to take the numbers that are across from each other and multiply them together. Okay. So I always like to have the x on the left hand side. So when I multiply the 100 with the x, that's going to give me 100x. When I multiply the 86 and the 131, I'm going to pull out my calculator. 86 times 131. It's a large number, 11,266. Okay. You notice that we still have the equal sign in the middle, okay? But when we cross multiply, it gets rid of our fractions. Okay? So our cross multiplying combines pairs of numbers that are across from each other. Last, to figure out what this unknown value of x is, because that's our ultimate goal, what is that number supposed to be? We want to divide. Okay? And we're going to divide by whatever is in front of this x. So in this case, I want to divide by 100, and I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay? So all I'm going to be left with is x, and then if I take my 11,266 and divide that by 100, I'm left with 112.66. So to answer the question, what is 86% of 131? Well, if we had 131 objects, 86% of them would be a little more than 112. Okay, 112.66. I'm going to work through the next 2 questions following these 5 steps. Okay. But I'm always going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What you're going to find out as we go through these next 2 problems is numbers move, where we fill in numbers is going to move around a bit. Okay, so it's going to look slightly differently, but this process allows us to get the numbers in the proper spots. So we're always going to start with putting the percent number over 100. I've got a percent number 40% here. So all I'm going to do is put 40 over 100. The next thing is of number goes on the bottom. Remember, that's whatever number comes directly after the word of. Okay? Here's the word of. Right after the word of is the word what. So in this case, we don't have an actual number, we have a question mark. Okay? When we have a question mark, that's where our unknown value goes. So we're just going to put in that x. Okay? A little bit different from the first example because it was of a number. Here it is of what we're going to represent with that x. Okay. Whatever is left is going to go on top. Well, I still have this number 33. Haven't touched that yet, so that's the leftover part. That is going to go on the top. Okay. This allows me to get my proportion set up properly. Okay. From here, again, I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply the 40 and the x to get 40x. And then I'm going to multiply the 100 with the 33 to give me 3,300. Don't worry if you need a calculator to figure that out. Okay. Last step, divide. We're going to divide by whatever number is in front of the x. In this case, the number 40 is in front of the x, so that's what we're going to divide. And we're going to divide both numbers by 40. I'm going to be left with just my x on the left-hand side. If I go back to my calculator, 3,300 divided by 40 equals 82.5. So, to go back to our question, 40% of what is 33? Or you could say 33 is 40% of what? Okay? Well, 33 is 40% of 82.5. The third example, again, changes things slightly, but if we follow the 5 steps, we will be in good shape to work this question out. Percentage over 100. Well, in this case, we don't have a percentage. It says what percent. So if we don't know what the percentage is, there's our unknown value. That's what we're actually going to be figuring out this time. Okay. Step number 2, we're going to take the of number and put it on the bottom. Okay, if I look through here, here's the word of. 82 is directly after the word of, so that's going to go on the bottom. What's left? Well, I still have 41. I haven't used that yet, so that's my leftovers. That's going to go on the top. When I go to cross multiply and multiply the x with the 82, just gives me 82x. And then I'm going to multiply the 100 with the 41 to get 4,100. And then the last step, divide. I'm going to divide out 82 on both sides. That will leave me just with my x, or the unknown value that I'm trying to figure out. Pull out your calculator. 4,100 divided by 82 equals 50. And some of you might have noticed that when we set up our proportion here. If you notice that 41 is half of 82, well, half of 100 is 50. So sometimes you might be able to just pull the numbers out when you look at the relationships between them. If not, follow these 5 steps. Your calculator will help you through. At this point, I would encourage you to pause the video, try the 3 examples down here on your own, following the 5 steps up here. And once you have those tried, then come back to the video and see how well you did. Alright, so I'm going to follow my 5 steps as I set these up. First thing, I'm going to take my percentage and put it over 100. So I've got 150% over 100. Of number goes on the bottom. Well, I've got that what. So I don't know what that is yet. That's where my x is going to go. I've got the 105 left over. If I do my cross multiplying, I get 150x is equal to 10,500. And yes, you probably used a calculator for that, and that's fine. And we're going to divide out whatever number is in front of the x, which is the 150. So 10,500 divided by 150 equals 70. Okay, so you should have been able to come up with an answer of 70 for this example. For the next one, 5 steps. Percentage goes on the top. Sorry, percentage goes over 100. I've got a what percent, so I don't know what my percentage is. So my x ends up being over the 100. Of 70, that of number always goes on the bottom, and the leftovers are going to go on the top. 70 times x is 70x. 100 times 63.5 is 6,350. And then I'm going to divide out my 70 on both sides for that final step. 6,350 divided by 70 equals a little over 90. Large decimal, but what we can do is just round it off. So we'll say 90.71. Okay? Because we're going to be dealing with money throughout this course, I'm always going to round off to 2 decimal places because that's what we do with money. Okay? That's how cents work. As we move on to the last one here, again, 5 steps, percentage over 100. So we've got 35% over 100. Okay. Of number, I see of 216, so that's going to go on the bottom. Whatever's left over, well, it asks us to find that value. That's our unknown. So when I do my cross multiplying, 100x is equal to 35 times 216, 7,560. And when I divide out the 100, I'm left with x is equal to 75.60. So hopefully you were able to work through those questions on your own and come up with the same answers that I did, whether you use my 5 steps or your own processes. If you're good to go, move on to the practice questions. If not, go back over the 5 steps following through how these questions were set up. Okay. You'll notice in the practice questions that they're more little like a word problem. Okay, so it's not just a few words, but more like a sentence. Again, you're looking for that word of, a percentage number, and whatever's left over. Okay. We'll see you next time.